Hello, friends and family, and welcome to the Cave Talk. Too often we see top level talent rise to the occasion and wonder what that person has done to become the best. We hear about their achievements and what they've accomplished. However, what we don't hear about are the experiences they go through and the habits they've created to get there. Join me, along with my co host Malik Amin, as we sit down with next level individuals to hear how they achieve success, conquer their defeats, and the experiences they've encountered along the way. Resilience, grit, and authenticity, you're sure to learn what it takes to become the best version of yourself. Today's episode is sponsored by Constant Pressure Sports. CP Sports is taking the wrestling apparel industry by storm and is becoming a serious contender with the announcement of signing NCAA champions Seth Gross, Kyven Gadson, and Lee Kemp as their official sponsored athletes. Let CP Clothing take care of your team apparel needs today and visit them at www.cp.clothing or follow them on Instagram at CP_gear to get a free design quote for your team apparel needs. CP Sports, baby.
The Cave Talk.
Hello, friends and family. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of The Cave Talk. I am your host, Jordan Amin, joined as always by my co-host, Malik Amin.
What it do?
What's going on, Malik? Today, we're joined for episode 3, three-time All-American NCAA champ, 2-time U.S. Open champ, and then recently signed, actually, to Constant Pressure, Kyven Gadson. What's going on, Kyven?
What's up, fellas? How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. How you been throughout this quarantine? What you been up to?
I've been actually really good since it all popped off. In March. It's been eye-opening. A lot of things have been really good. It gave me time to spend more time with family. Really zone in and look at some things that I was doing in terms of trying to be the best version of myself with wrestling and things like that, and just in life. And so I'm appreciative, honestly, of it, because it just kind of gave me some time to really reflect and dive into things that maybe otherwise I wouldn't have, dug in on. So I'm appreciative of it. So I've been able to get my training in still, been able to go for runs. I'm on the functional patterns, bandwagon now.
Functional patterns.
So I've been doing that since January. So that's been helpful. And then on top of that, still been able to get some scraps in and stuff like that. So It's been good.
Where have you been staying throughout all this?
I'm in Ames, Iowa.
Ames,
Iowa. Ames in Iowa, home of Iowa State University. So I'm still out here. Been really low key about it. Head down, go to work.
Right.
Awesome. Well, how do you think about the functional patterns? Is it a little bit different? Because I've heard Yusuf Hamida, he's big on it, and then Kyle Dake, obviously. So is it a lot different from what you're used to doing?
Yeah, it's definitely different. They really have a huge focus on movement and how your body, is supposed to move versus how we've, basically relearned or retaught ourselves to move just through, through life and stuff like that, So it's been good. It's definitely been different because when you've done something one way for such a long time in terms of, traditional strength training, and you've accomplished what you've accomplished with that background, it's like, how can you tell me this isn't working?
Yeah.
And
right.
I had to look at it from a standpoint of maybe that it's not working, but it's not as efficient or as it could be. And your body isn't moving as efficient. And so It just came to a point for me personally where my body wasn't dealing with traditional strength training the same way it used to, and so my body was broken down pretty often. And so Coach Kevin Dresser kind of just said to me, hey, well, there's some people, down the road in Ankeny at Move Well. My trainer's Anthony Backham. He's like, check them out. If you like it, cool. If you don't, whatever. And at that point, I was coming off the U.S. Open, took 4th, didn't have a great performance, didn't feel good about how my body was feeling, certain things. And so it was like, I don't have anything to lose. I got 3 months until the Olympic trials, and if I don't make the team, I'm retiring. So it was just like one of those things
Yeah.
that I essentially had hit, a place where it was okay to change, and I was just like, all right, dive in, and it's been helpful for me since then.
There's a lot to be said about functional training too, with because I mean you can attest to this. Both of us wrestled in college at Michigan, obviously, and then you were at Iowa State. But you train so differently in college with heavy weights and Olympic style lifting, and then you get into like you said, you get into a next level of wrestling because you're stepping up from college to like a professional level of wrestling, and
Right.
your body is not as young as it used to be,
No.
like you were in college, and lifting like that has got to like take the toll on your body. So switching over to that functional training probably makes a world of difference in your strength and just keeping your body healthy, right?
Yeah, and that's what the basically the premise of it is like, well, you don't have anything to lose, Kyven. When I was making the decisions, like you're not lifting anymore anyways, because the last time you lifted, you were doing a regular front squat with, your normal body weight, which you've done way more than that before, and your back kind of came out, came out. So it's like, well, I mean, I don't have anything to lose, right? So it just came to that point. And it's interesting because when you talk about change, people don't usually want to make change unless they have to, right? Like if you look at the state of the world right now, it's like
exactly
they're reactive.
Yeah.
We're very reactive people, and so I want to take this, I guess, experience and try to become a more proactive, like, well, what can I do to stay on top, or what can I do to better myself while I am on top, so that I'm not getting to a point where, like I'm failing like that, like, consistently, for me to be like, like I need to change something. So I'm grateful for it. I feel like I learned a lot about myself, and I'm still learning a lot about myself, so I'm appreciative.
Who have you been training with over in Iowa?
Well, we got some of the college guys are able to come in and stuff like that, and then I just got a training partner, Turk Tak Luzendorf. He wrestled at the Citadel. He was All-American there, and he took 5th in the world in 2018 at 92 kilos. So he's here, and we've been training together. That's been really beneficial for me. I hope it's been beneficial for him.
Yep.
Just the ability to grow and wrestle with a guy that's a high level guy in terms of like positioning, wrestling IQ and stuff like that. So it's been really good for me.
Yeah, that's good. As far as speaking of wrestling, continuing off of that, what do you? I mean, we talked about it before we started the podcast just a little bit. The state of wrestling, the whole state of the sport right now, kind of what's going on social media and with the problems going on in the world between the racism and social injustice, and then on top of that we had COVID to the mix and the craziness of that.
Right.
It's kind of pouring into the wrestling world a little bit, and it's unfortunate. But what's your take on how the state of wrestling is right now?
Well, it's definitely interesting. I mean, you're talking about equality and stuff like equality. You're talking about programs getting dropped. Like all that is like coming to a head, right? So again, just like we all came together in 2012 when they dropped Olympic, wrestling from the Olympic Games, and the women's wrestling was the strongest pillar in putting us back into the games. It's just an understanding that we need women's wrestling. We need to do our part in America for women's wrestling. It's relatively simple, and I think there's an important part for Greco as well. We have to do better, and it's really that simple. We have to do better. We have to think about ways to give more exposure, create more opportunities, and if you think about it, you were talking about the social injustice. That's rolls into the Black Wrestling Association that's being started in the BWA, and our whole mission statement is about, to inspire, create, empower as well as increase representation, equality, and opportunity. And so we just have to do a better job. If you think about wrestling, it's probably not it's an inclusive sport, right? Because you don't have to have Anthony Robles didn't have a leg and he was an NCAA champ, right? And things like that. So it's an inclusive sport, but I think we can do a better job in terms of making sure as a country, women's wrestling gets the exposure they need, as well as Greco-Roman. Because if you go across, it's different in every country, right? Japan, women's wrestling is bigger in Japan.
Yeah.
So like when we go over to the Tokyo Games, women's wrestling is going to be highlighted.
Right.
It's like over there, right? It's going to be highlighted. It's going to be on the highest levels of wrestling because of their pedigree, because of their history, because of their legacy. And so I think as American, as American USA Wrestling, we need to do a better job of just increasing that exposure, giving the women the opportunities that they've earned, as well as making sure, Greco has the opportunities, and then everybody has to do their part in terms of the athletes, continuing to work, continuing to win, do those things, because when people want to be around winners, right? People want to watch, listen, learn, feel winners. So that's kind of where I stand with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about the Black Wrestling Association. That's something you co-founded, correct?
Yes, sir.
How was what was like the beginning stages, like the conception of that, where you guys got together? Because it's you, James Green,
I think Mark
Hall,
and then BJ Futrell. Yeah.
Yeah. Kenny Monday.
Yeah. A lot
some more. Yeah. Some more names are coming out, within the week. But it goes down in the DMs.
Yeah.
But that's how it all started, honestly, was when we saw the tragedy that transpired with George Floyd. It was just like, man, I feel like we need a safe space where we can talk and kind of figure out what we can do in this, state that we're in terms of a country, in terms of a sport, what we can do. And it kind of just snowballed from there. And we have a lot of special people on board that want to help, that want to be a part. And really, we just want kids to have the opportunities that we had. It's different when you're coming from a wrestling family. Like I came from a wrestling family.
Yeah.
My dad was a head Division I coach at Eastern Michigan University.
Yep.
He was a 2-time All-American. My uncle was an All-American at Iowa State. And so I came from a wrestling family. So I was essentially bred to do this, born and bred to do this. Whereas maybe a kid from Philadelphia or New York City or somewhere else doesn't have that family lineage, right, in terms of wrestling. But if they had the opportunity, then they would be able to, grasp it and go with it wherever they want. And like a side note, but that's kind of like I started also a nonprofit with my friend here in Ames called the Be Rare Initiative. Yep. And our focus is to promote healthy social and emotional learning, allowing each child, an opportunity to be rare through their own creative outlet. And whether that outlet is wrestling, theater, music, art, engineering, coding, whatever it is, like kids just need opportunities, and they need people that are going to invest in them and care for them without ulterior motives, that aren't there to harm them, that are there to protect them and help nurture them to their own greatness. And we have to understand, like as people that are working with kids, that it's not about what we deem great. It's not about, oh, well, we need to put this kid in this box, right? We need to help them find their, outlet, their creativeness, their greatness. And then we need to foster them onto a path so that they can cultivate it. It's really that simple, but I think we miss the mark sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it all stems too from our education system too. I think that we don't have anything like that within our education system, where that's where, if you think about it, that's where kids spend, 80, 90% of their time. and that's where sports stem from too, right? You go to school, then you play a sport after school, and there's no
Yeah.
sort of initiative like that to keep
Yeah.
the kids, to have, like you said, have something to as an outlet to look forward to, and like a safe place. Is that something that you have, like, is that an initiative you have, like, on Twitter? Is that a social media initiative, or is that something
Yeah.
that
So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. On Facebook we're at Be Rare Initiative. On Twitter we're at Be Rare _or Be Rare. And then Instagram Be Rare Initiative.
Be rare.
And so
I like it.
yeah, like it's just I think it's important. And the Be Rare kind of came about for me was my senior year of college. After coming up short the previous 2 years of winning an NCAA title, it was like, well, what do you have to become? Who do you need to what do you need to embody to become an NCAA champ with your senior season? It was like, well, there's only 10 Division I NCAA champs, so to do that, you're rare. You got to be rare.
Yeah.
And it was like relentless, aggressive, resilient, and exceptional. That's what it's changed to. But at the beginning, it was relentless, aggressive, resilient, and like electric or execute. And so it started as that just for me. It was on the inside of my headgear, as well as on the other side, it was faith, family, and focus. Now that's changed to faith, family, and freestyle. But
Yeah.
it's just, it's just like, everybody has their own different path. And I think a lot of the time, everybody wants to put someone on the path that they want them to go on.
Right.
But everybody's path, their pace, their progress, everything looks different. And we need to understand that as people. Yeah.
No, that's super important. I think it's important for everybody to understand, but you keep saying it, and it's something that I keep hearing because I resonate with a lot, but the kids need to hear it, right? Because that's the future. So if we can shape and mold our youth into, having the right mindset with things like this, because unfortunately in the world we live in, we can band together and we fight and we fight and we fight, and it's almost impossible to get rid of negative people.
No, they're
They're
the
just
problem
always
is
there, and
yeah,
it's
they're
like,
always going to be there.
but the only way to change that is to continue to shape and mold these kids and let them grow up to be better people. Because if we can get rid of the negative with shaping them into positive, then that's going to eventually reflect on the rest of the world. So I think that's super cool. But I want to take you back. You're talking about that's something you started your senior year of college, correct?
Right. Well,
So,
that's where the Be Rare mantra came from.
right.
So I started that my senior year, but we just started the nonprofit during quarantine.
Got it. Going in at the start of your senior year, you had that mindset, and then you come into the finals and you wrestle and you're getting ready to wrestle Kyle Snyder. What was your mindset when you were like right there, right? It was like, I have one more task, and then I can finally accomplish the thing that's in the inside of my headgear.
Finally
It's
get
been in
some
my
ice
mind
cream.
all year.
What's it feel like? I just want some ice cream, man. I just want some ice cream.
Finally get some ice cream. Yeah. What was it like going into that match? Like, did you feel? Obviously, you felt the nerves, but like, it was something that you've been, like you said, been working on, and you wanted to be rare, become that 1 of 10, and you were right there.
Right. Well, there's definitely a lot of nervous energy. Like, I was in the back, like yelling, getting out nervous energy.
We've all been there
pacing,
before.
And my coach Jackson was like, "Hey, sit down." I'm just like, "Yeah, no, I'm not really trying to sit down right now." But I was really excited and I had already played it in my head. It had already happened in my head, and I had told
The Gatsan throw that you coined,
Yeah.
that was already in your head.
Yeah, it had already happened because Kyle and I wrestled earlier that year at the Cliff Clean, Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I remember
And
that.
it was like a 3-2 match. But I recognized in that match that he wasn't as comfortable in upper body. Now, he would go there with an underhook, but he wasn't super comfortable there. So the night before, after I made the finals, I'm sitting in my room with Jerome Ward, who was a teammate, and Nate Carr Jr. And we're talking. He's like, "Well, do you guys got a plan, Kyven?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "We're gonna pin him." I'm like, he doesn't like upper body, and we're gonna just allow him to kind of get there, get comfortable, and when it presents itself, I'll know what to do. I'll recognize it. So if you watch the match, there was a couple times where he would get that underhook, and I'd kind of just chill out and act like I didn't want to be there. It was like, one of those cat mouse games,
Right.
because I recognized that he wouldn't want to be there, and when that situation was going to hit, I wasn't sure when in the match it was, but I just figured and believed that we were going to get into a position where he went to an underhook, and I was going to be able to, go from that position. And so I didn't know the name of it. And I always ask Coach Jackson, because Coach Jackson taught me it, and he didn't know the name of it, or I don't know what. And I was like, well, I'm gonna call it the Gatsan Glide. I said the Gatsan Glide. And he's like, I don't like that one. And then
call it the Gatsan.
he's like, well, you can't call it anything unless you hit it on the big stage. And I was like, oh, say less. Say less.
So you literally spoke all of that into existence.
Man, that is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah,
Visualization.
it's one of those things. If you watch the NCAA, they have those videos where they like get the finalists and everything. That Friday night, like right after they win the semis,
Right.
And I'm in there talking. I'm like, well, like the only thing there is to do is like to get a pin in the NCAA finals. Like that's what you do it for, right? Like you do it because you want to have, like, when you're a wrestler, that's your walk-off home run.
Right.
And against a guy like Kyle Snyder too, man. Like that guy, I've maybe seen that guy lose twice internationally. And then you go out there and you stick him like it's nothing.
Gadson back up to 2 feet, trying to get the takedown. He does. Trying to get the pin. He did. Kyven Gadson's mission is over.
And like, oh, I'm gonna brush it off. It's just so crazy.
It's been exciting, like watching him. I mean, exciting in like the most exciting way when you're the backup,
Right.
but watching him do what he's done since then, because when I went into that match, I was like, I'm done after this. Like I'm done wrestling. Like period. Like I'm done.
Oh, so you weren't gonna pursue anything.
I was done.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just like I was tired. My father had passed away in 13.
Yeah.
So that was my 13, 14 year, which was my junior year, was a hangover wrestling. Like it was like I wasn't even there. Like I wasn't existent. But I knew how to wrestle, so I beat a lot of guys. But when it got tough, I kind of just like didn't feel like giving the effort. It was just one of those things. That's just the honest assessment of it. And so going into my senior year, I was like, all right, one last shot. Let's get it done. And, you told your college coach, KJ, when he came into your house and on your birthday, July, 9th in 2009, that you're going to be an NCAA champ. And so you need to make sure you stay true to your word, because he stayed true to everything that he said about you. He said you would get. And it's crazy because when KJ sat down in my living room on my birthday, my 17th birthday, he's like, your son's going to be an NCAA champ. He's going to get a bachelor's degree. He's going to get a master's degree, and he's going to become an Olympic champ. He's going to win Olympic and world titles. And so we got a bachelor's degree first. We got the NCAA title, 5 or 6 months later. We got the master's degree a year and a half. Or 2 years after that.
What'd
And
you
so
get
the
your master's
last
degree in?
higher education and leadership.
Awesome.
And that's where I got the inspiration for the Be Rare, is that social and emotional intelligence, because it just makes you really learn the skills that you need to develop in yourself before you can go out there and work with other people. And so the last thing I need to do in terms of my wrestling career is be a world and Olympic champion. So
do the big things, man.
Yeah, I still have that opportunity, and so I'm super, super grateful that I have that opportunity.
Yeah, of course. I saw you're on social media when they dropped Pat Downey from the card. you're trying to get in there with David Taylor to wrestle that card.
Oh
That would've-
no.
that would've-
I would have paid to see that, man. That would have been a fist fight, man. That would have been great. But who did they end up going with? Do you
They
know?
put on Miles
Miles Martin. Okay.
I thought they were gonna do your guys' cousin or your
Oh,
brother. I
yeah,
thought they were gonna
Miles.
do Miles.
Yeah, they reached out to Miles, but it's just kind of tough with him being a college athlete and he can't get compensated.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfair if one
Right.
guy's getting paid 30 grand and he's just showing up for free. I mean,
Right.
I can see both sides though. I mean, you got to love to wrestle, but then again, you have COVID. There's a lot of things.
There's a lot of moving
wrestle.
pieces.
Yeah,
of course.
but
There is a lot of people that would have been great candidates. I mean, like Miles, yourself.
here's my thing. I don't understand why they don't have more matches. They should do it like the UFC.
'Cause-
Like, I know that you probably agree with me, Kyven, but why wouldn't they have more? I mean, even if they have to split the pay a little bit, but I mean, two guys are getting $50,000. I think you could make a lot more great matches that more people would pay if you put, guys. I mean, you versus Snyder. That's a great match. Why wouldn't anybody pay for that? I mean, seriously.
I don't think they want to see it after he beat me 6 times in freestyle. And that's just my honest opinion. But
Yeah,
every time is different out there. But yeah, I wanted to wrestle Gwiz. I tried to get on the card with Gwiz. I hit him up. I was like, hey, like, what about Gwiz?
What about Jaden Cox?
I would love that.
Yeah.
I said, what about Nickel? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, with another one. Yeah.
so, like, I was like, yo, like, I'm ready to scrap. I was like, I'll even wrestle, Tracy or D'Angelo Hancock.
Yep.
In Greco. I'm like,
Yeah.
it really don't. I'm just
Versatile.
trying to scrap. I think
And that would have been something too.
That
would
would've
have
been- I would've watched
That would have been
it.
good for Greco wrestling,
Yeah,
especially right
exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yo, like, just give me an opportunity. And so in a way, I'm like, yo, like, I feel like in terms of what I've done in this sport, like, I got the NCAA title. I've been behind Kyle for the last 3 years, 17, 18, 19.
Right.
And so, like, I won the U.S. Open twice. I feel like I've done enough. Maybe I don't talk enough in terms of, chit chat on Twitter and social media.
Right.
But in terms of my wrestling, for the most part, when it comes down to it, I've been one of the better guys in the
That
country
speaks
over
for
the
itself.
last, 5 years.
100%.
And I feel like sometimes it gets discredited or whatever that is. But I know that when everything falls out and I really start clicking and everything's really jiving in terms of health, mentally, physically, spiritually, that it's going to be a really fun product to watch in myself.
Yep.
And I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing too. It's like you watch a guy like you and you compare yourself to the weight class. I mean, maybe there's a couple guys, but I honestly think you're one of the more exciting guys to watch at the weight class because you go upper body. I mean, you see a lot of people fear when they get in that underhook, they start backing out. They're not really comfortable wrestle there. But you throw somebody like you or Nickel, you versus Nickel would be unbelievable because you both love the upper body. I mean,
I'm like, let's go get some bodies. Let's go get some bodies.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Regardless of the score, I mean, it's all for fun at the end of the day. I mean, it doesn't count for anything, but I think that would draw a lot of attention, which is crazy because you see some of these guys. I mean, I know a lot of the college guys went on the last card, like the Brunagels, and all respect to them, but you go and like watch some of those matches. It's like, I mean, let's get some, excitement in there. Like everyone sees double A takedowns.
The purpose of those are to grow the sport.
It is. No, I agree with that. But I'm saying, like, if you want to see something exciting, and let's say I'm somebody who doesn't watch wrestling. Okay, somebody gets a double A takedown. I don't really understand that, but if someone literally gets thrown on their head, I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome.
Right.
Like seriously, I mean,
Right.
a feet to back throw is like the most exciting thing you can watch. If you ever watch Sergey Bogachev wrestle. And why Sergey was so entertaining, it wasn't because he was a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. It's because he was a crowd entertainer.
Right.
And he did the Polish show. It's kind of like the Gatsan a little bit. He would
No,
throw
it is.
back. It is. Exactly.
That's the name of it. I didn't know that, so I just recoined
Polish,
it.
well, hey, we're gonna, from now on, Kyven, from now on, I'm gonna correct Sergey. I'm like, hey, Sergey, it's not called the Polish anymore. We renamed it. It's called the Gatsan. So take note of that. So
no, it's interesting how I mean, there's not really many competitors with flow wrestling. I don't think there is.
yeah,
any.
that's the thing
So
too.
That's another thing is, like, as you said, your talent is definitely something that should never be put in the shadow. But like you said, sometimes you feel it is, even though you are one of the best in the world, because you're not on social media running your mouth. You know what I mean? And it's like, if that's the only way you can create a platform, I guess some people just buy into it just so they can get
Mhm.
get themselves out there. But it's unfortunate when you're trying to grow the sport of wrestling the right way, and it comes down to whoever runs their mouth on Twitter and creates the
Yeah.
most attention for themselves.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of it that you got to do. You know, some of it's super necessary, right?
Of course.
You know, like Masvidal didn't pop off until like he got a knockout, then he got another knockout, then he got that flying knee, and it was like super necessary, right? He's
It's
just
like-
out here like popping off, you know, like little one-line
Go to
point
sleep.
phrases, and everybody's pushing him, right? He's excited, he's this, right? And so there's a piece of it where you have to do it, and the thing that is essentially going to be undeniable is results. So I know that in my heart, okay, like if they count you out, if they're not giving you this love, they're not, whatever it is, win.
Right.
Simple. Win,
Yeah.
win, you know,
Right.
and that's going to take care of basically all of it. But then in another way, Jaden isn't on Twitter running his mouth, you know, and
No,
it's not like
he's
everybody's
not.
like, oh my gosh, I want to see Jaden, but
Yeah, he's a bronze
Well,
medalist.
people slam him because he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
It's like that's not who he is.
Right.
If
Yeah.
you have met Jaden Cox, he's one of the most genuine people you ever meet. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, he'll give you his shirt off his back. But it's crazy. He's he's now a two-time world champ,
two-time
world champ, and Olympic bronze medalist, and a guy. I mean, I talked about this last episode. I mean, somebody who just runs their mouth and they just have a ton of followers just because they run their mouth. They just don't even have the credentials. I'm not referencing Pat Downey, by the way, but I'm just saying. So like you see with the UFC fighters, guys that don't really have much credibility and they're running their mouth, but everybody wants to see them fight, you know, just like
Yeah.
you. I mean, you're the top contender at 97 right now. And it's crazy that you don't have a match lined up. It's like, it blows my mind, you know?
Yeah, you know, it is what it is. And I know in due time, I'm going to have my opportunities. And when I do, I need to be prepared and ready to perform at a very high level. And I think I will be.
Yep. Earlier you talked about you talked about faith and spirituality and in your wrestling and just in your personal life, and then you lost your dad in 13. Was that was faith and being spiritual something that was always in your life, or did it not happen until your passing of your father? Because I know for me, and I only ask this because for me and Malik, we had like a series of really unfortunate events in our family back 3.5 years ago. We lost like 3 important people in our lives back to back to back. And I wasn't somebody that was super faithful or spiritual. And since then,
It makes you spiritual.
I have become.
It
so
does.
So it's just, I always wondered if that was something that you've always had in your life, or was
Right.
something like that happened to you, an event like that brought it to you?
Well, I grew up in church, right? And it's one thing to like be in church, right? But you like kind of like, man, like I gotta come here every Sunday, Mom.
When's the Eucharist over, man?
Right. And so it was really the last thing my dad said to me was make sure you have a relationship with God. That was the last thing literally my dad said to me. And that was the week before I left for the Big 12 tournament. When I got back, or that Tuesday, he stopped being responsive in terms of talking. When I got back, I won the Big 12 tournament. We got back to Ames. I drove up, hour and a half, gave him my Big 12 medal. He wasn't responding or anything then, but he passed away like an hour and a half after that. And so that, along with my grandma dying 2 years earlier, right after I had tore my shoulder in my first collegiate, dual meet, and ended my freshman year. So I only wrestled 3 years in college. So in terms of that happening, I was 3 for 3 in terms of All-American. But so it was those events that pushed me back to what I knew, I guess, was faith and was spirituality from my childhood, and so yeah, it was those events, and so I'm appreciative of the events because it allowed me, again, like we talked about earlier, with change, right? You don't really want to change stuff until you have to. And I was at rock bottom. I was depressed. I was drinking. I was smoking, because of the shoulder surgeries. I was dealing with the, opioids. Yep. And struggling with those. So I had some real struggles, some real demons that I was dealing with, and I wouldn't have been able to get through them without God. And so because of that, that's why that faith piece has since then become my foundation. And I can always feel it that if I'm not like solid, or I like stray, from that piece, that like I can feel it in my like being,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so it's definitely a deeper understanding for me. And like I said, I'm glad it's happened. I'm not glad that my dad's not here, because I miss him, and there's things that I would love to see him interact with my kids, but it grew me as a person. It grew me as a man of faith. It grew me as a young man. I had to grow up. I had to deal with real life stuff, and I keep him in my heart. I keep him in my mind, and I think he would be proud of who I've become and what I've been working to become. And
Absolutely.
I'm just appreciative of my parents overall, because my parents grew up in some rough situations.
Uh-huh.
If we're talking about adverse childhood experiences, my dad grew up with his parents separated. My mom's dad wasn't in her life. Like there's there's a lot of stuff that my parents went through that I didn't have to experience, because they did. you know they made sure I didn't have to experience those type of things. And so I'm appreciative of everything that my parents have done for me, because like that's the goal. Like as a parent now, I understand it's like you want your kids to have a better life than you.
Yeah.
Um,
Of
and
course.
so
It's
I'm really
it's
appreciative.
I can like I have a baby. Me and my wife got married back in October of 2019. We have a baby.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have a baby girl on the way in October this year. So like for me, I can totally she's not even born yet, and like I feel like I love her more than anything that I've ever loved
Yeah.
He's
before. So
putting
it's
on the
like
dad shoes,
yeah,
man.
so it's like I can totally understand. Like I would definitely just want my kids to just be a better version of me. So it's like,
Right.
and I'm sure that fuels you even in
Yeah.
wrestling too, just knowing that
Yeah.
you're trying to put on a show for yourself and for the rest of the world, but for your kids too, to show them who their dad is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And wrestling on a stage like that, setting an
Yeah.
example. You have two
She
kids, you
gets
said?
Yeah, my oldest one got mad at me because I kept losing to Kyle. She wasn't very happy
Daddy.
with me.
Uh,
She's like, we were supposed to go to Paris in 17.
She thought she was going on
Um,
vacation.
yeah, she was like, I
man.
didn't get it done. um, but it's one of those things. It's like how do they look at it? How do they see it? Um, do they see how you respond to the failure? Yes, because she's old enough to see it and understand what that looks like. Um, Sometimes she's like, "You're too hard on me." She thinks I'm too hard on her. I'm like, nah, I just have expectations.
Right.
You're being a good
So it's
dad.
just one of those things. So it's definitely it's interesting. You're gonna
Yeah.
love being a girl dad though, bro.
I know it's
Oh,
well,
man.
we obviously like I'm not gonna lie, before the gender reveal I was like, damn, I hope it's a boy. Like I want
You got to
because
carry on the legacy, man.
we come from a big wrestling
legacy,
family.
yeah.
So like
Right.
my grandfather was a bronze medalist for Team Lebanon back in the day, and then both of our dads wrestled at Michigan, and we're on a few Olympic alternate teams, and then me, my cousin Malik, Miles, and my little brother Cam, we all wrestled at
Too many
Michigan.
damn means.
So like, I was like, damn, I want to have a boy, and have him continue to, if he wants to, have him continue to follow the legacy. And then we pop these cannons, and Pink comes out.
I'm like, Jordan is so pissed right
like,
now.
oh. Like shit, all my plans just changed.
I texted him. I was like, man, are you mad right now? He's like, no, man, I'm just happy to have
Well,
a baby.
the interesting thing is, like 20 years from now, she could be wrestling at Michigan.
She
That's
could be
You know what I'm
true.
saying?
You're
Like
right.
that,
Hey,
like that's
I didn't
like if
think of
you
that.
think about it like that, like that would be like surreal, right? Like your first one is gonna be your daughter, and 20 years from now, with the way wrestling is growing and the way women's wrestling is growing in particular, she could be wrestling at Michigan for the Wolverines. So
Absolutely.
you never know,
Yeah, you never know.
She's
yeah.
gonna be in a meme, man. She'll be tough. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's
They
a
don't want to
given.
go mess with her.
No, but yeah, I'm super excited to be a girl dad though. Now that you talked about it,
Yeah.
and everybody I talk to too that has like a girl as their firstborn, including my uncle Mike, his dad,
Yeah,
says
my
that like
sister's the
having a
oldest.
girl first is the best because they take care of you. Then like the
boys
boys
don't,
are good
they
to have
don't.
later, but definitely have that girl first. So I've been looking forward to it ever
Yeah,
since.
man.
So I mean, regardless, I was happy. You know what I mean?
Boys
Boy
are
or
hard
girl.
to deal with, man. I couldn't imagine the crap I put my dad through when I was younger, man.
I'm learning I've learned how to do hair and everything, bro. Like I like take pride in getting her dressed up and stuff. Like I call
Absolutely.
it, like whenever we go out and someone's like, "Oh my gosh, she looks so cute." I'm like, "Yeah, she's daddy dressed."
Yeah.
Like I'm like, "Yeah, I did that."
I
Like,
Yeah,
did
that's
that.
right.
I did her hair too. Like
That's how
it's
you know
like,
you're getting old, man. That's how
it's
you know you're
it's a
getting old.
pride. It's a pride point. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's literally a spawn of you. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So, as far as wrestling continues for you, what's your plans? I mean, as far as like if 2020, 2021, I guess now comes up and you either get where you're at or you don't get where you're at, regardless of the outcome,
Or it doesn't happen.
Or it doesn't
Or it doesn't
happen.
happen.
What's your?
That's
Do you
also,
continue? You want to continue on and go for another run, or what's up?
I'm not sure. There's days where I'm like yes, and then like there's days where I'm like ugh.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I really want to pour into community, and that's what the Be Rare initiative is about. And so, if there's opportunity to do that, I also have had aspirations to be a athletic director in college, and so like I've talked to Iowa State and talked to people about my desire to be in administration. I don't think I'll coach wrestling. Just I don't have that desire. I think to coach wrestling, I think I would like. I just love sports overall.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting because this whole pandemic has like thrown everything. Like everybody's in a hiring freeze, And if football doesn't happen, bro, like
A lot of
that's
sports.
like a lot of stuff like just goes by the wayside. And so it'll be interesting to see if the NCAA like were to survive that, if football doesn't happen, things like that. So like there's lots of questions that you don't know. I even saw a tweet that said, teachers should start teachers shouldn't go back to work, right? They should start teaching out of their school or out of their house. Only have
Zoom.
or teach out of their house, but only have like 10 students. So you have smaller class sizes, charge parents, whatever, maybe $250 a week, whatever. And instead of making $30,000, you're making $130,000, because how that works. But like,
different.
I don't know, like it's a different way to think about it.
But what people don't go ahead. Sorry.
I think people are starting to think about ways they can monetize and use their skills that they develop to make a securer living.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
It's super interesting too, because I think people don't realize like for a lot of kids going to school
It's a safe place.
Is a safe place,
It
but it also for a lot of kids it's a meal, and it's like
right.
What the hell happens to these kids that depend on school for a safe place, for a place to socialize and build those skills, but also to eat.
There's just so many what ifs.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't just shut that all off and just leave everybody high and dry. You know, and then especially parents that they have
Can't
to work.
afford that.
They can't afford that, and they have to work. What do they do with their kids when they're not able to watch them all day? They can't afford daycare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's just got to be a different emphasis. I think the emphasis right now is on reopening the economy. And obviously that's important because the economy is the backbone of everything. But I think they need to focus on reopening the schools. I think it's more than just education for a lot of kids. It's how you meet your friends. It's a lot for self-esteem as a kid, being around the right people. And I think like Kyven was saying, it's a sense of community. I mean, the community coming together in the classroom. So it's crazy. Like you said, with sports, there's just a lot of what ifs in the future. Like we go and reopen, and then everybody says, no, this is way too fast. You can't reopen. And, it's just so crazy, man. Just different times we're living in.
Yeah, like you were saying too with sports. I mean, if football if football has a tough run with this season coming up, it's gonna unfortunately it's
Hopefully
gonna
not. I
hit a
really
lot of
hope
other
not.
sports really hard. I think it was Minnesota. It was like $160 million is their athletic budget or something, and football is like 140 million of that.
It's the breadwinner for every university.
So
You look at Michigan too.
you cancel $140 million. That doesn't leave many room for scholarships in sports in Minnesota. So
Sports are going to get cut, and wrestling should be on the chopping block. I'll tell you that right now, because there's no literally like person for person equality. It's not like football gets balanced out with all the women's sports, because that's what happens with Title IX. They use football to balance a lot of sports. Wrestling kind of is just in there just to be in there.
Well, what you'd see too is a creation of different leagues, because I know in Michigan they're talking about, like, if they don't have a high school season, they're gonna just create like their own little leagues and have and sanction them themselves.
Yeah, because they're not the only professional sport that I know that has a non-compete, which any organization cannot go against, I think, is the MLB. But if you're the NFL, you're the NBA, competing organizations could rise. That's another thing that could happen. A lot more competition could go in. Same with the NCAA. I don't think NCAA also has a non-compete either.
Right.
So it'd be crazy to see
It'll be
other college organization taking
how
over.
It all pans out.
We'll see. But
what do you like to do for fun, man? What do you do when you're not wrestling? I know you're creating, bettering the world and creating all these different initiatives and bettering the youth. But what does Kyven Gadson do when he's not wrestling and saving the world?
I do. I spend daddy duty time. But yeah, like there's really not much to do like outside of that, I guess. Yeah. Like, I mean, I write,
man.
Yeah, like I write poetry and I rap for fun and stuff like that. But that's kind of just like a creative outlet that
you got a SoundCloud?
No, I'm not a SoundCloud rapper.
No.
Not there yet.
Not there yet. But one of the guys on the team, I've wrote some verses for him that I'm trying to get him to feature me. So if
he be the next DJ Khaled, huh?
Another one. Be rare. That would be our tagline.
Yeah,
but
rare,
it's just something that's fun. Yeah, it's just good times.
Yeah, just keep your mind busy, because what do you think about only focusing on wrestling? You think that's something that burns people out, and having that other outlet to look at when you're not wrestling? It's super important.
I think it's different for everyone. Some people have the ability and the stamina to do it. Some people need that like step back moment to relax and stuff like that. And I'm one of those people that needs that step back moment. And so I don't know. It's interesting when you like study the greats, though. They have that like consistent obsession, right? Like if you study, Kobe or Michael or John, Smith, they have that consistent obsession. But then when you also think about it, they retire early and they still could be going. Right. Like John Smith retired after 6 straight. Why? He was 26. I don't know. Like Kenny Monday wrestled till he was, 34. Right. But there wasn't that boom, 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 repping out 6 in a row. So right. It's like a give and take thing. So it's just really interesting to me how different people deal with it.
Yeah. It does get interesting, because you see guys like Jordan Burroughs. It's almost like he's nonstop and he doesn't get burnt out. And then you see what he released. He doesn't plan to really go anywhere. He still said he's sharp.
That was surprising.
In shape, ready to move. So it's interesting to see how different people react.
Yeah, I think Burroughs takes.
That would be interesting. I think he steps away though. I think after
he gets that feeling, and he's like, yeah, man.
I think after Tokyo, I think he like steps away. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you. I think so too.
But I think he's saying that just to keep people, ripping and running,
it
in
goes
their
back
minds.
To the social
but
media
it's
thing.
like, but it's like, nah, you're not about to leave your coaches you've been with for 15 years and then all of a sudden, move somewhere else. Now I know you want to be closer to family and everything like that.
Right.
That makes a ton of sense. But I just think he would be stepping away from it, at least for maybe a year or two. And then if he decides to keep going, he does. But It'll be interesting for sure.
He
Yeah.
never
And
said what
maybe
he's
the,
gonna do. Yeah. He
yeah,
could be a
maybe
coach too. You
yeah,
never know.
maybe this type of break was the step away that he needed.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
like because
Right.
every summer for the last since 2011 he's been training.
Right.
Yeah, for the
You know, to
world.
be the best in the world. You know, and
Right.
so it's one of those things.
Yeah, it was time will tell, especially with
Yeah.
COVID.
I
And
agree
we'll
with
see
you
how
though.
it
I
goes.
think he steps back. I think he's going to be a coach. I think he'll help out a lot there. I don't think he's going to step away from wrestling necessarily. I think from competing, I agree with you because I think
Yeah.
once he gets that final feeling, just being done and achieving your goal, and then just I mean, what else is there? You have to wait another 4 years for the Olympics, and he's already won
Yeah.
the worlds a couple of times too.
Right.
So it's like, what else
It'll
more
be
can you do?
interesting.
He'd be a
It'll
father.
be interesting. That whole weight is going to be interesting. That 74 kilos. That
it
the whole weight.
yeah.
I mean, the Olympic trials is going to be a
man.
big event. And so I'm excited to be a part of it again. I feel like in 16, I was just kind of getting over that like hangover of retiring, I guess, and coming back.
Right.
And so like now I feel like I've had the consistency that I need to really perform at a high level. So I'm excited for Olympic trials. Yeah, just because it puts you, it's a step. It's a step that you got to take to make your
The
dream.
process.
You know?
Right. Before we leave, sign off, Kyven. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but what can people do that are listening to help out that Be Rare initiative, and then also
Just how about you in general?
and with the Black Wrestling Association too, because there's a lot that can be done, and it's a pretty solid start. You have a lot of really powerful people standing behind it, so it has a potential to go somewhere. But what can people do that are listening to support that?
Well, I think the first step is open their ears, listen to understand. I mean, obviously following on social media, all that stuff is good.
Right.
And just ask questions, ask the questions, have the tough conversations. Think about, people other than yourself. And that goes across, everything, the BWA, that goes across women's wrestling, that goes across the Be Rare, it goes across Greco. Just listen to understand, have, tough conversations. I think we need to stop doing so much conversing over, text and tweets, because stuff gets tough, stuff gets lost, in translation, and context is fumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and someone can take it wrong. But if you just pick up the phone and call someone, like let's say I don't like a tweet someone said about me. Like, well, I need to figure out if what they said is really what they said and what they felt, and so it's just easier to just pick up the phone and be like, hey, like if this is this how you feel? Why do you feel this way? All right, cool. Now I don't have to move with you if I don't want to, like if that's if our, understanding is different and I feel like it was disrespectful, whatever, I can now know for sure that's how you felt, you sticking by it, whatever. But sometimes I think through text and social media, things get lost in translation and context is fumbled, and it makes it harder to have like respectful, intelligent and productive conversations. And so I think it makes it harder to grow when we're doing that. So yeah, just listen, go follow everything on Be Rare, hit me up. And I'm pretty good at responding most of the time. But yeah, shout out to Constant Pressure. I'm super excited to be working with them moving forward.
Yep.
My
their shirts are comfortable, man, too.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
I'm pumped. I'm pumped. My logo, I was really proud of the logo that we created.
Yep.
And just like you talked about faith, like I'm part of my logo is, me smacking the mat before, like I get down, I squat, I pray, and then I smack the mat. And so like that's part of my logo. It's like a silhouette type deal. And then I got my initials and my signature in there. And so I'm super excited about what's ahead and the things that have grown me to this point and helped me learn to this point. And I'm excited about moving forward with all the support, all the people in my corner, and just, continuing to grow.
Absolutely. Well, your positivity and your attitude is definitely contagious. I definitely appreciate you signing on with us and doing episode 3. We're super excited to continue to grow this podcast and get people like yourself on here that have such a positive attitude and do such positive things for the community and in the world on here to tell their story and share a little bit about them. But you can find Kyven on Instagram and Twitter at Gatsan Strong, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And then also the BWA is also on Instagram. And I think, is it also on Twitter too?
Yeah.
Yep. So go follow that. Support Kyven. Support his cause.
Absolutely. He's doing good things
It's
for the
great
community.
to talk to you, man. Great to pick your brain.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man, for having me on. I had a great time. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. And I look forward to listening to more episodes of Cave Talk in the future.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
no worries,
man.
man. It's great to have you on.
The Cave Talk.